Deer hunting solutions for a young, sensitive shooter. That's what we're going to talk about today on Gunfighter Life. Welcome to the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, hunting, ballistics. With God at the center, biblical, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. Bio bullet points in the show notes. So, you guys that listen regularly, you'll know that I was blessed to be able to teach a young girl how to shoot last year. Her parents, that's not really their thing. They're not really hardcore into it. But they weren't opposed to it. And she wanted to learn. And I said, pretty much, when you hear me outside shooting and you want to come join, come join. And she did. And she shot quite a bit. Even got her own first guns. Now she shot 22. And she shot very well with a 22. Better than a lot of grown men can shoot handgun and rifle in a 22. Well, she also is very excited about going hunting. She wants to go hunting. She wants to hunt deer. Well, recently she came up to the cabin and I said, let's get you started with some rifles that you might be able to take a deer with. Now, I had her shoot 2 guns, neither of which were painful to shoot. That's not the kind of person I am. I'm not going to set her up for failure. But one was a rifle I've taken a lot of big game animals with, and that's a 243 Remington 700. And the other was a short-barreled AR, which I think I've only taken coyote with. But with the right load, I would feel okay with that one. She didn't like either one. I think she shot each one once or twice and was done. She did not like it at all. And it wasn't the recoil. She said the kick, it wasn't it, didn't bother her at all. Neither one of those are hard recoiling guns. What she said bothered her was the concussion, the blast. The noise and the concussion of the shot, that bothered her. That rattled her. She didn't like it, didn't want any part of it. I wasn't going to force her to keep shooting, knowing where that road goes. It's just going to go nowhere good. So that leaves me in a quandary, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So some solutions that I have, and I put out on Patreon to have them vote on it, and also they voted on this episode. I put out a bunch of ideas for episodes pretty regularly. If you want to be part of that and a bunch of other content, go to Patreon. Anyway, I came up with some possible solutions. Here are the solutions going down. Wait till next year. I could just wait. I could just say, look, we're not going to hunt, big game animals this year. We're just going to wait. That's a possibility. She just turned 14. Could just wait and see if she still really wants to do it. That's definitely an option. It wouldn't be a bad choice. The other one is a PCC, a pistol caliber carbine. Anything from 9mm, 38 special, 45 ACP, any of those. With the right load in close, they will be okay for deer. They're not a good deer caliber. They're a marginal acceptable deer caliber. But again, get her in close, get a bullet in the right place, it'll be fine. So that is an option. It's maybe not with a 357 Magnum or a 44 Magnum, but with many of those loads, like a heavy for caliber 38 special, heavy for caliber 9mm, 45 ACP, it's not going to have that blast and concussion out of a proper 16-inch or longer barrel. It's just not going to have that concussion, that blast. So I don't think that would bother her. So that's definitely an option. Again, if you're going to do this, if this is a solution that you take, the right bullet, not full metal jacket, not the round you have for self-defense, but a really good, wise, thought-out choice that is going to be good for taking a deer, let's say, inside of 75 yards. If you're talking about like a 44 mag or a 357 mag, those can be as loud and as recoiling round as a 243, and they're way worse ballistically. So there's really no point to that for this. They're a decent close-in deer round, but they don't solve this problem. So you're talking heavy for caliber, 38 special, 44 special, 45 ACP, 9mm, 147 grains, those kind of things. And, again, inside 75 yards, that would be a fine solution. Put it behind the shoulder, only take a broadside shot. They would do okay. That's definitely a decent solution. The other one, 300 blackout with subsonic loads. That's going to get rid of a lot of that concussion. It's basically a 45 ACP. You can say all you want, blah, blah, blah. It's basically a 45 ACP. You're talking 45 ACPs, 230 grains at subsonic. The subsonic loads for 300 blackout are 220 grains, just under subsonic. Yeah, one's a little bit longer and sleeker, but inside those ranges, it doesn't matter. So the 300 Blackout, the benefits of that is I could just buy an upper, right? I have plenty of ARs. I could just buy a 16-inch upper. Long barrel, going to get rid of pretty much all that blast, concussion, any of that. Yeah, it's going to have better ballistic coefficient and all the other, stuff, but inside of the ranges that we're talking about, not going to matter. But again, the good solution to that is I could just buy an upper. Throw a red dot I have sitting around on it, or a scope I have sitting around on it, get a decent load that would still expand at subsonic velocities, and they make them. There's been a lot of R&D on the 300 Blackout. That would not be a bad choice. That would actually be a pretty good choice. I've often been like, what is the point of 300 Blackout? But here you go. Here might be a good use case for 300 Blackout. Again, heavy for caliber, long barrel, not like a pistol barrel, but like a longer barrel with subsonics. Don't need a suppressor. For that, it's still going to be fairly quiet, get rid of a lot of that concussion, and there you go. The other option is to load 308 or 30-06 or a lot of other calibers. Those are just the two main ones that I have, with a heavy bullet with pistol powder. These are pretty commonly known. Used to be Trail Boss loads, but Trail Boss has become like hen's teeth to find. So you can do it with Tight Group, which I have. You can take a rifle round like 308 or 30-06, load it heavy for caliber. It doesn't even have to be heavy for caliber, but it makes more sense for this, and load it to subsonic velocities. So you could take your standard old 308, and I could load, let's say, a 220 grain bullet or a 200 grain bullet at 1,000 feet a second. That is going to do okay for deer. If you don't think it is, consider something like a 45 Colt, which has been taking deer for a long time in a carbine. Talking, that's a 250 grain bullet. This is a 220 grain bullet. That's going to be going 900 feet a second. This is going to be going 1050. It'll work. It'll be just fine. It's got crazy high sectional density, right bullet in the right place. Inside of, again, let's say 75 yards, it would do fine. Broadside shot, it'll do fine. I imagine the penetration is going to be very, very good. So loading a 30-06 or a 308 to 1,000 feet a second with a heavy for caliber bullet, 200, 220 grain. You could even go probably like 180 grains. None of them are going to have a lot of recoil. And here's the dirty secret, that's not a secret. If you have a fairly long barrel with those calibers, with that kind of load, they're quiet. You don't need a suppressor. You don't need to spend $800 on a suppressor and $200 for a tax stamp. You can just spend a few dollars in powder and bullets and load a quiet round. So that is definitely an option if you're looking into this. Again, look for a bullet that will expand at those velocities. They do exist. Keep your shots in close. Keep it to a broadside shot. Know the limitations of it. No, it's not going to be the same as a, full-powered 180 grain Remington Core-Lock. But it will certainly get the job done if you are judicious about shot placement and keep it at reasonable ranges. And that'll get rid of that blast, concussion. That powder is pretty much going to be burnt, since it's a pistol powder, way before that bullet exits the barrel. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be potent. It's going to be lethal enough. It's a good, affordable option. Another option would be to get a muzzle loader and load it to, generally a hot muzzle loader is 1,300 feet a second for like your traditional 50 cal Hawkins muzzle loader. I've got quite a bit of experience with muzzle loaders, competing with muzzle loaders. Took my first buck with a muzzleloader when I was, 14-ish, just guessing, based on the picture that I have. I've done quite a bit with muzzleloaders. If you downloaded it a little bit to a 50 caliber bullet at 1,000 feet a second, especially in a heavy rifle, because I can carry the rifle for her and just hand her the rifle. It's not going to have a ton of recoil. It'll have some recoil, but the recoil is not what bothered her. I don't think it'll have so much recoil that it bothers her, and it definitely will be quieter than, a 243 cooking at over $3,000. Another intriguing option is a crossbow. Now, I've often talked trash on crossbows because I think they're one of the stupidest choices for all these post-apocalyptic shows, movies, whatever. I think they get picked because they look cool, but they're a horrible choice. They're glacially slow to load. They're way more powerful than you'd ever want, which makes them slow to load for any kind of defensive purpose. But for this, right, it kind of checks those boxes. They're affordable. I could get a lethal enough crossbow for cheaper than the cost of a tack stamp, let alone the suppressor and a tack stamp. Nowhere in here does a suppressor seem like a logical choice. I know people are going to say, get a suppressor. If you want to spend $1,000 on a tube, you go ahead. I don't really feel like it. There are other solutions that just make way more logical sense. Even with a supersonic load, if I put a suppressor on, it's still going to be loud. It won't be as loud, but it's still going to be not hearing safe. It's still going to be loud. You could accomplish the same thing with much easier solutions, despite what Instagram might have you believe. Or some YouTube influencer that's sponsored by a suppressor company. Anyway, for less than the cost of a tack stamp, I could get a good lethal crossbow. And that's going to be way quiet. You're going to have zero concussion, and it's not going to have any recoil in the traditional sense. They still do move around. There's some bucking and stuff there you got to get used to, but they don't have recoil in the traditional sense. Plenty lethal enough inside of the ranges we're talking about. And there's no special crossbow season in the state that we're in, but I could just use it in firearm season. Just use it in place of a firearm. That is another legit option. Those are some possible solutions for a very sensitive young girl that wants to go deer hunting, or any person that's very recoil sensitive that wants to go deer hunting. Hopefully this helps other people out there. What do you think? What are your thoughts? I'll tell you what the Patreon poll said. Patreon poll said, wait till next year, 0. Pistol caliber carbine got 2 votes. 300 blackout got 2 votes. Load down 308 or 30-06 got 1 vote. Muzzleloader got 1 vote. Crossbow got 0. And other comments got, there was 2 others and some comments, 4 comments. I'm not going to go through and read them, but I was really surprised. I thought that loading down 308 or 30-06 would have gotten more votes. It seems like one of the more logical choices to me. And I'll tell you right now, I did order some heavy for caliber bullets, and I already have some powder I can use for it. So I'm going to try those out, God willing, and see how they work out. That seems like the logical choice to me. The second most logical, which got 0 votes, would be the crossbow. They're affordable. They're plenty lethal. And again, about the cost of a tax stamp, I could get a decent one. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all that you do. Tactical verse of the day. Or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, who you have from God, and you are not your own, for you were bought at a price? Remember that, Christian. You were redeemed by the precious blood of Christ. You are not your own. You were bought at a price. It's a whole change in your worldview when you accept that and realize that you are bought at a price. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.